Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 172 based on novel. So let's start. Wang Lin's eyes were extremely cold after crushing the strand of hair containing an almost undetectable amount of the woman's divine sense. Her divine sense was hidden very well. If it wasn't for the fact that he had already been paying attention to Xu Fei, it would have easily avoided his detection if he had been negligent for even a moment. The corpse sect spells are indeed astonishing, and spells to hide divine sense are always difficult. It looks like I have to be more careful in the future. That woman, Xu Fei, was able to send out her divine sense, meaning she is the real body. That means Zhao Yixuan is the corpse puppet. Wang Lin began to ponder. The reason he was able to identify Xu Fei was due to Sun Tai, the slave Ju Yi forced on him back then. Sun Tai had a corpse puppet that was only a child, but it was extremely intelligent and had a high cultivation level. Their relationship was also very unique. It wasn't a simple corpse puppet, but more like they were two individuals. Thinking about Sun Tai's corpse puppet, Wang Lin couldn't help but think of Sichu Nan. He ended up taking over that child's flesh. I don't know where Sichu is now, but he must be on some cultivation planet living his life as a king among mortals. There was a hint of reminiscence in his eyes. At this moment, he was no longer the fiend but a mortal recalling his friend. There was also Sun Tai. He was the head elder of the corpse sect on planet Suzaku. He was thrown into space by the giant demon clan ancestors' bloodline power. His current whereabouts are unknown. Wang Lin took a deep breath as he collected his thoughts. His eyes lit up as he looked at the branching cracks surrounding him. He couldn't feel Ju Yi's aura anywhere, so he had to search them one by one himself. Senior Ju Zi was sealed by Ling Qianhu here, so the crack with the seal must have Ling Qianhu's aura. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed as his divine sense spread out to check the cracks around him. After a short period of time, Wang Lin frowned. He checked all of the surrounding cracks but found no trace of Ju Yi. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy as he slapped his bag of holding and took out the crystal Bei Lu gave him. Wang Lin's divine sense entered the crystal. Shortly after, his eyebrows knitted even tighter and he withdrew his divine sense from the crystal. If Bei Lu didn't lie, then this was where he found Ju Yi. Wang Lin began to ponder. Bei Lu shouldn't have lied to be about this, as it is completely irrelevant to him. There is no reason for him to do something as pointless as this. If he wanted to act against me, there was no reason to use such an underhanded method. He could have just attacked me directly. Right now the most important thing to him is to devour the other ancient demons. Unless he deceived me into coming here to kill me with a borrowed knife. Wang Lin's eyes became cold and his divine sense swept the area again, then he shook his head. If he had said that Ju Yi was at the bottom of the tide abyss, it would be possible that he wanted to kill me with a borrowed knife. However, this place looks very ordinary. As Wang Lin pondered, he spread out his divine sense. This time he was even more careful as he searched through every crack, but the result was still the same. Wang Lin pondered. After several breaths of time, he slapped his bag of holding and the soul flag came out. With a wave, 1,000 powerful soul fragments came out. Wang Lin controlled the soul fragments to enter every crack. Wang Lin closed his eyes and his divine sense entered each soul fragment. This way it was as if he was inside the cracks himself, and he thoroughly searched each crack. This time he was even more thorough, he didn't let any trace slip by him. After 30 minutes, all of the soul fragments flew back. Wang Lin opened his eyes and his expression became very ugly. I carefully checked all the surrounding cracks, but I still haven't found Ju Yi's presence. Could that ancient demon Bei Lu really have cheated me on this? Wang Lin waved his sleeves and his eyes became cold. However, his eyes suddenly narrowed. Wrong. If I were Ling Qianhu, I wouldn't seal someone in such an obvious place. If I was Ling Qianhu, Wang Lin began to ponder. The one strand of Ling Qianhu's sword energy he had left moved through his body, allowing him to borrow a sliver of Ling Qianhu's domain. The pondering expression in Wang Lin's eyes gradually disappeared and was replaced with a tyrannical gaze. Ling Qianho's domain was tyranny, to use his own tyrannical nature to go against the heavens and make his own path. The sword energy moved through Wang Lin's body and the tyrannical gaze became even stronger. If I wanted to seal a sword spirit that was haunting me, I wouldn't simply seal him, I'd make him yield to my tyranny. If he didn't yield, I'd seal him for 1,000 years. If he still didn't yield, I'd seal him for 10,000 years. If he still didn't yield, then I'd destroy his spirit to refine it into a treasure to make him yield. I won't choose these obvious cracks. If I were to choose this place, it must have a reason. If I were to seal it, I would choose. The tyrannical gaze was powerful, it was as if he was above the world. His gaze swept by each of the cracks. The tyrannical gaze in his eyes gradually disappeared and large drops of sweat fell from his forehead. At the moment, the tyrannical gaze completely disappeared from Wang Lin's body, and his face was pale. The domain inside Ling Qianho's sword energy was simply too tyrannical. Simply trying to borrow this sliver of domain almost injured me. Wang Lin took a deep breath as celestial spiritual energy cycled through his body. He slapped his bag of holding and the celestial sword flew out with the half-moon blade. Wang Lin's right hand grabbed the celestial sword and then he took a step forward. He suddenly turned with the celestial sword, releasing sword energy. A vortex of sword energy formed with Wang Lin as the center. Break! With a roar, Wang Lin suddenly stopped. At this instant, the sword energy vortex suddenly shattered and the sword energy shot out in all directions. Countless cracks appeared near the gaps in the sides of the cliff. The crackling sounds continued, and soon, cracks covered over 1,000 feet up and down the cliff. Crack! Wang Lin's voice was like thunder as it rumbled through the tide abyss. More cracks appeared on the cliff, and a large amount of soil fell off the sides of the cliff. The side of the tide abyss lost an inch after being swept by Wang Lin's sword energy. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he used the sword energy again. The sword energy was sent out again, and as he continued, the cliff quickly got shaved away. After 15 minutes, a small opening appeared, and a very faint aura came out from the opening. This aura didn't belong to Zhu Yi, but it contained extreme tyranny. Wang Lin's right hand formed a seal and pointed at the gap. The celestial sword flew toward the gap with the half-moon blade close behind it. Large amounts of broken rocks fell from the cliff. In the blink of an eye, a crack hidden 30 feet inside the cliff appeared before Wang Lin. This gap wasn't large, it was only 5 feet tall and was pitch black. The moment Wang Lin's divine sense attempted to enter it, it was knocked back by a tyrannical divine sense. This caused Wang Lin's body to fly back, and he smashed into the cliff on the other side. There was a loud bang as rocks fell from the cliff, and Wang Lin's body was imprinted into the side of the cliff. Blood surged inside his body and leaked out from the corner of his mouth. Wang Lin took a deep breath and his eyes became cold. He then moved his body and flew out of the cliff. This movement caused his face to become even more pale. The collision of divine sense just now almost caused his origin soul to collapse. If he hadn't reached the ascendant stage, then that simple collision would have been enough to shatter his origin soul. How powerful! Wang Lin stared at the gap. Although he didn't know how deep it went, he was confident that Zhu Yi was inside there. Because the divine sense that collided with his belonged to only one person, Ling Qianho. Merely a sliver of the divine sense he left behind is enough to kill cultivators below the ascendant stage. Just exactly what cultivation level is Ling Qianho at? The peak of late-stage ascendant is the end of the first step. Only by passing the trial of the yin and yang stage can a cultivator enter the second step, the 3 realms of nirvana. The 3 realms of nirvana are Nirvana Skriya, Nirvana Klina, and Nirvana Kshatriya. Each realm is then split into early, mid, late, and peak stages. The All-Seer once said that he was at the end of the second step. I calculate that he is at the early stage of Nirvana Kshatriya. Ling Qianho and the All-Seer have been rivals for tens of thousands of years, so that their cultivation levels can't be too far apart. He should be at the peak of Nirvana Klina. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a hint of dedication. Compared to the All-Seer and Ling Qianho, his cultivation was simply too insignificant. He hadn't even reached the peak of the first step, but Wang Lin was persistent. Ever since he stepped into the cultivation world as a boy, he relied only on himself almost the whole way and now had become an ascendant powerhouse. Although an ascendant powerhouse was a mere ant in the eyes of those in the second step, among the cultivators of the first step, an ascendant cultivator was still a powerful force to be reckoned with. Wang Lin took a deep breath and pointed at his forehead. 100,000 strands of slaughter energy appeared and turned into life seals that surrounded his body. To be more accurate, it was missing a strand. Wang Lin took his strand and fused it with his soul. As a result, he can make it so that these life seals would never be destroyed unless the last strand inside his origin soul was broken as well. He slapped his bag of holding the devil armor appeared and circled around his body as strands of black gas. It slowly turned into armor and a devilish aura shrouded his body. More than 10 golden symbols surrounded by insects floated around Wang Lin, providing another layer of protection. After doing all of this, Wang Lin pondered a bit and then took out the 1 billion soul flag. He waved the flag and it walked around him. More than 100 million soul fragments roared inside the flag. Wang Lin revealed a decisive gaze as he stepped forward and charged toward that gap. Zhu Yi and Wang Lin don't have a deep relationship, but their brief moment of interaction at the celestial realm was engraved deeply inside Wang Lin's soul. A man so infatuated with a woman that he would rather burn his own origin soul than let her go. His infatuation didn't move anyone. However, the clarity his eyes showed when he burned his origin soul would move anyone who saw it. He gifted something as precious as the ascendant crystal only for Wang Lin to guard the female corpse. It was such a simple task, but it was all that mattered to him before his death. Then Zhu Yi became the sword spirit for the Rain Celestial Sword, but the residual soul formed from his infatuation vanished and will no longer existed. At that moment, Zhu Yi heard a sound as if the entire world had shattered before him. His heart died and his sword energy had no vitality. Using his body as a spirit, he chased Ling Qianhu through the void and vowed to kill Ling Qianhu. The him of that moment was looking for death because his only attachment to life was gone. Wang Lin witnessed the cruelty of the cultivation world throughout his life. Almost everyone had some hidden agenda in their hearts. Only a few people were worthy of him remembering them in his heart. Sichu Nan, Dun Qian, 1. Sect leader of the Soul Refining Sect, Kai Hu, 2. Guy from Giant Demon Clan who befriend Wang Lin in Celestial Realm, Zhu Yi. Back then he was only at the soul formation stage. Before Zhu Yi, he was just a humble junior, but today Wang Lin was at the ascendant stage. He let out a deep breath and stepped into the gap. Even though he knew some things were dangerous, as a man with a conscience, there were things he had to do. Back then, when he saved 13, he battled the demon general on his own. Today, to save Zhu Yi, he wouldn't stop even if he was being guarded by Sword Saint Ling Qianhu's divine sense. At the moment he stepped into the gap, the divine sense left by Sword Saint Ling Qianhu charged at him with its tyrannical nature. The divine sense attack seemed to solidify as it closed in on him. This tyrannical divine sense was like a sharp sword that could pierce the heavens, and it stabbed directly toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's outermost defense, the soul flag, also released a roar as 100 million soul fragments gathered to form a shield to block the sword. However, Ling Qianhu's divine sense was too powerful. The shield formed by 100 million soul fragments was penetrated by the sword and continued making its way toward Wang Lin. At this moment, Wang Lin revealed a hint of determination. He clearly knew that he shouldn't move forward at this moment, but if were to retreat, he would never have another chance to save Zhu Yi. In a person's life, there will be things they must do. If they don't, then even if they live for tens of thousands of years, they would look back and see nothing but chaos. Wang Lin's determination turned into decisiveness and he took another step. At this moment, the sword intent formed from Ling Qianhu's divine sense closed in. Without a word, Wang Lin waved his right hand and the golden symbols instantly condensed around him. The sword intent landed on Wang Lin's body. White lightning moved between the bodies of the insects on the golden symbol surrounding Wang Lin's body. He took another step forward without any hesitation. More than half of the insects around him became stiff and fell off the golden symbol. Wang Lin waved his sleeves and collected them inside his bag. This step triggered a divine sense several times more intense than the last one. A series of thunderous roars echoed through the gap in the cliff. The countless echoes fused together and sounded like the wrath of the heavens that wanted all intruders to die. The soul fragments from the soul flag couldn't block it at all. It was broken once more, and the attack landed directly on the devil armor. At this moment, the devilish energy in the devil armor collapsed and Wang Lin felt an unimaginable force hitting his body. He had a feeling that if he didn't retreat, he would immediately collapse and die. However, a feeling was only a feeling. With Wang Lin's self-control, he was able to suppress this feeling. His eyes became even more determined, and the scattered devil he had been branding for a century was released by him for the first time. Wang Lin hadn't completely solidified the imprint on this scattered devil, so he hadn't refined it into his second origin soul. After releasing it, a black devil soul with a single horn charged out of Wang Lin's forehead. It came out laughing, and its laughter was filled with devilish energy. Its eyes were filled with confusion as it attempted to devour Ling Qianho's sword energy. At the moment the devil soul appeared, devilish energy never seen before by Wang Lin poured endlessly out of the devilish armor. The energy went into the devil, making its body slowly turn corporeal. It devoured Ling Qianho's divine sense, and then a violent aura exploded in its body. The tyrannical domain started rampaging inside its body. The devil let out a roar, and there was a hint of clarity in its struggling expression. Just at this moment, Wang Lin's origin soul trembled as he noticed the devil soul's instability. Without any hesitation, he sent out a sliver of divine sense into the devil soul to activate the imprint. Although the imprint wasn't stable, it had been imprinted for the past 100 years. Now that it was activated, the devil soul was immediately sucked back into Wang Lin's body. The sound was muffled as if someone was chanting a spell. Even the devil armor around Wang Lin's body seemed to be affected as it turned into black gas and no longer stayed solid. Wang Lin quickly put it back into his bag of holding. He then immediately took another step, and this time he moved forward 100 feet. However, the third divine sense that was even more intense than the last surged out from the depths of the gap. It rumbled like thunder and even seemed to contain Ling Qianho's voice. The sound was muffled as if someone was chanting a spell. The soul flag wasn't powerful enough to resist it, and the devil armor was now gone. The only thing left was the 100,000 life seals. At the moment the impact from the third divine sense arrived, the 100,000 life seals rapidly swelled to 1 million. Borrowing the sudden expansion, it was able to block Ling Qianho's divine sense. However, in just a moment, the 1 million life seals quickly collapsed. The veins on Wang Lin's face bulged as he let out a roar and slapped his bag of holding. The god-slaying war chariot flew out and turned into the thunder beast. The beast let out a roar, arrived before Wang Lin, and collided with the divine sense. The thunder surrounding the thunder beast began to sizzle. The thunder beast's body released large amount of thunder and continued to be pushed back by Ling Qianho's divine sense. Borrowing this moment of rest, Wang Lin's life seals quickly recovered back to 1 million. His eyes become cold. Sometimes, passive defense wasn't the best method. If he wanted to charge in, he would need to attack. Wang Lin took a step forward and the finger of death activated in his hand. The celestial spiritual energy inside his body surged as he shot out multiple fingers of death toward Ling Qianho's divine sense that was currently being blocked by the thunder beast. The black lights created by the fingers of death shot out like arrows, leaving behind ripples as they landed on Ling Qianho's divine sense. Wang Lin took another step and pointed forward again. The demonic finger appeared and the celestial spiritual energy in his body surged. Due to the 4 drops of celestial liquid from back then, even though he hadn't used any celestial jades, his celestial spiritual energy seemed endless, just like the slaughter energy. At this moment, the celestial spiritual energy in his body turned into devilish energy, and because of the scattered devil, the devilish energy was extremely pure. This energy shot out from Wang Lin's finger. There wasn't 1 shot, but 10. Shortly after, Wang Lin raised his right hand and the underworld river appeared. He took several more steps as all his spells appeared and bombarded Ling Qianho's divine sense. Wang Lin still felt like the power wasn't enough, and his eyes became cold. The 1 million life seals all turned into slaughter energy, the only one that didn't was the one hidden inside his origin soul. They fused into one strand of slaughter energy and charged out. As for Ling Qianho's sword energy, Wang Lin wasn't dumb enough to use it against Ling Qianho's divine sense. He was afraid it would switch to the other side the moment it appeared. At this moment, the entire tide abyss seemed to be trembling. The dirt and earth of the wall of the cliff seemed to be caught by a mysterious force as they began to float off the cliff wall. All of the spells suddenly collided with Ling Qianho's divine sense. At the same time, the thunder beast let out an earth-shattering roar as it turned into a ray of thunder. It charged directly at Ling Qianho's divine sense along with Wang Lin's spells. There was a series of muffled sounds coming out from the entrance to the tide abyss in the water demon country. The ground constantly shook as if powerful sound waves were passing through it. At this moment, even Murongshua, who was deeper down in the tide abyss, felt the terrifying fluctuations above him. As for the two women beside him, they also quickly looked up, their eyes filled with terror. Simply terrifying. Could this be caused by Wang Lin? Xu Fei took a deep breath, and that hint of anger from when Wang Lin destroyed her divine sense disappeared. She made up her mind, she wouldn't dare to provoke someone like this. The powerful ripple continued to spread through the walls of the tide abyss until it reached the bottom. The bottom of the tide abyss was filled with corridors. The moment the sounds entered this area, they immediately reverberated endlessly. The corridors at the bottom of the tide abyss formed a square with a black hole in the center that led to the unknown. There was a large sword stabbed halfway into the wall of the corridor. The moment the sound ripple arrived at the sword, it loosened a bit. The sound wave spread far as it echoed through the corridor. At this moment, at the exit at the fire demon country where Greed and the Da Lu sword sect disciples had been trapped. Greed suddenly opened his eyes, and his eyes were bright. Ling Qianho's aura. Could he have arrived early? No, although this aura belongs to Ling Qianho, it is only part of it. In addition to his, there is another aura. This other aura is unfamiliar, but to appear at a time like this, could it be because of the token? Greed seemed casual as he swept the Da Lu sword sect disciples before closing his eyes. When the ripples arrived here, they were already really faint. Aside from Greed, no one else noticed. In the Da Lu sword sect, Ling Qianho, who was wearing a Daoist robe and was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. The sword spirit seal, Ling Qianho's eyes had a profound gaze. The place I sealed that sword spirit was extremely well hidden. How could it have been discovered? However, as long as the sword spirit wishes to die, then the seal will never be broken. Ling Qianho pondered for a moment before closing his eyes. In the tide abyss where Ju Yi was sealed, Wang Lin's clothes were being swept back by a violent wind and were flapping in the wind. With his hair floating in the air, he was forced back several steps, then his eyes became cold. The attack earlier destroyed the third divine sense left by Ling Qianho. However, the price was great. The thunder beast had shattered and the pieces had to return to the god-slaying war chariot. An opening was made in Ling Qianho's divine sense, but it quickly began to close and was about to disappear. The blood inside Wang Lin's body surged and many of his meridians were blocked. The celestial spiritual energy was no longer flowing smoothly through his body, but he didn't immediately adjust his condition. Instead, he took a step and charged like a meteor through the gap in Ling Qianho's divine sense. This time Wang Lin used his full speed, and there was a thunderous rumble as a result. The gap wasn't as narrow as he had imagined, so he charged directly into the depths of the gap, and here he could faintly feel Ju Yi's aura. Trespasser, die? Ling Qianho's divine sense appeared once more. This time the divine sense sent a tyrannical message that directly entered Wang Lin's ears. This voice shook him so much that he was involuntarily pushed back. Cracking sounds came from the entire crack in the cliff due to this divine sense, and countless small cracks appeared on the cliff wall. Wang Lin's origin soul weakened after being shaken by this divine sense. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and his face immediately paled. This Ling Qianho is too powerful. Wang Lin took a deep breath. If just the divine sense left behind to seal Ju Yi was already this powerful, how strong would he be if he arrived personally? Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He slapped his bag of holding and a crystal clear brush appeared in his hand. Holding the celestial brush, his hand quickly moved before his body and a golden symbol appeared. The moment this symbol appeared, it immediately lit up the pitch-black gap. Without any hesitation, Wang Lin once again drew. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes, 4 strokes, without a single pause, he drew 7 strokes. This was the first time Wang Lin had drawn more than 1 stroke with the brush. Although he drew more than 10 symbols earlier when dealing with the bugs, they were all the most simple one-stroke symbols. With each stroke, Wang Lin could feel that a part of his origin soul had entered the symbol. The 7-stroke symbol contained 7 portions of his origin soul. 7 strokes was Wang Lin's limit. When he refined the brush back in the soul refining tribe, he tested it out. He couldn't draw the 8th stroke because his origin soul couldn't split into 9 parts. There was a copy in his body, and there was 1 copy in each of the 7 symbols. Unless he gave up his body and had all of his origin soul merged with the symbols, he wouldn't be able to draw the 8th stroke. At the moment he drew the 7th stroke, all of the celestial spiritual energy charged out of his body like runaway horses and surged into the 7-stroke symbol. The 7 strokes fused into one and became a circular symbol. This symbol looked extremely strong, as if it contained the universe. It appeared as if the sun had descended from the sky and fell in the gap. Not only were the rays of golden light dazzling, they even hurt the soul. The celestial symbol that was created with the celestial brush using celestial spiritual energy was considered a complete celestial spell. Its light pierced through the cliff of the tide abyss like a sword. At this moment, if one were to look from the outside, they would be able to clearly see the golden light coming out from the crack. This golden light continued to spread and soon lit up the water demon country tide abyss entrance that hadn't been lit up in countless years. The 7-stroke symbol contained 7 portions of Wang Lin's origin soul, allowing him to control it like it was his own body. He drifted it directly toward the depths of the crack. Ling Qianho's divine sense began to show signs of disappearing after being pierced by the golden light. However, it immediately stopped dissipating and Ling Qianho's divine sense let out a roar before charging out. This time the divine sense took the appearance of Ling Qianho. A Ling Qianho wearing a Daoist robe with a tyrannical gaze on his face closed in step by step. He then became blurry until he turned into a ray of sword energy and charged directly at the symbol. When the symbol and sword energy collided, violent shockwaves spread like crazy. The intense rumbling caused countless cracks to collapse. The shockwave was so powerful that it even caused many places in the water demon country to shake and shocked countless people of the demon spirit land. Wang Lin's expression was extremely pale and he coughed out 6 mouthfuls of blood. The blood contained celestial spiritual energy, and when it landed on the ground, it created 6 deep marks. The symbol shattered and 6 of the 7 divine senses shattered. The last one returned to Wang Lin's body before the symbol collapsed. As for the sword energy created from Ling Qianho's divine sense, it had dimmed, but its sharpness had not decreased. However, the symbol that collapsed was, after all, a real celestial spell. Although the symbol had collapsed, countless golden specks had surrounded the sword and formed a golden cage. Although it couldn't trap the sword energy for long, it could still trap it for a moment. Damage to the origin soul was considered a great injury for cultivators. Wang Lin's eyes were completely red, and the heart of slaughter appeared. Since he had already arrived at this point, there was no backing out. He leaped over the trapped sword energy and charged directly toward the depths of the crack. He closed in with just 1 step. There was a purple spirit body hanging before him. This spirit body was Ju Yi. Ju Yi's eyes were closed, and his face was filled with confusion. Aside from the area between his eyebrows, his entire body was covered in purple. This purple seemed to be alive, as it continuously squirmed. The purple on Ju Yi's face was like a bunch of silk threads that seemed like they were trying to devour the golden light from between his eyebrows. There was a 30-foot formation on the ground under Ju Yi. Strands of purple gas were coming out from the formation and entering Ju Yi's body. There were 4 treasured swords stabbed into the ground at the 4 corners of the formation. The light the 4 treasured swords emitted slowly fused with the ground. At the same time, there were fist-sized balls of light on 3 of the 4 swords. The balls of light gave off the aura of a powerful divine sense. Senior Ju Yi, It had been many years since Wang Lin had seen Zhu Yi. However, at this moment, Zhu Yi was surrounded by this purple gas. If that golden light between Zhu Yi's eyebrows was devoured by the purple gas, then Zhu Yi would forever belong to Ling Qianhu with no chance of awakening. The formation that was sealing and refining Zhu Yi was something that Ling Qianhu made personally. He called it the Celestial Refining Demon Transformation Formation. This formation was very powerful, but the main focus was on the 4 swords on the ground. Ling Qianhu once refined 4 small worlds into 4 origin soul swords. These 4 swords were a projection of those 4 origin soul swords. In order to increase their power, Ling Qianhu left 4 divine senses above the swords, making the formation even more powerful. As for the purple gas, it was a demonic aura. It came from the water demon country's remnant ancient demon soul. The reason why Ling Qianhu secretly came all those years ago to seal Zhu Yi here was because he had some dealings with the ancient demon in the water demon country. They had a good relationship. The location of this crack was in a hidden vein. This vein was hidden underground and was directly connected to the capital of the water demon country. This allowed the ancient demon to send demonic energy through the hidden vein at any time. The demonic spiritual energy would then be absorbed by the formation. Then the formation would convert it into the celestial refining seal and slowly invade Zhu Yi's spirit. Ling Qianhu and the ancient demon of the water demon country had made a deal. This deal was considered complete after Ling Qianhu sealed Zhu Yi here. Each of the ancient demon remnant souls in the 9 countries had their own plans. The ancient demon of the water demon country was looking for a spirit body that could withstand his own demonic spiritual energy. This process was very slow but also very stable. As long as the golden light between Zhu Yi's eyebrows was devoured, he would become the water demon country's ancient demon's body. Ling Qianhu didn't plan this ahead of time, but he was constantly chased by Zhu Yi after leaving the celestial realm. Zhu Yi was forcibly made the celestial sword spirit by the white-robed woman and had gained powerful spells. In addition to that, Ling Qianhu had already suffered injuries from the white-robed woman after they fought several times, so Ling Qianhu's was in an extremely embarrassing state. In Ling Qianhu's view, this sword spirit wanted to die and even used the limited life sword energy of the celestial sword like crazy. It has to be said that the Rain Celestial Sword was the #1 treasure of the Rain Celestial Realm. Although he obtained one, he didn't dare to take it out before Zhu Yi. He knew that the moment he took it out, it would be controlled by Zhu Yi. Although Ling Qianhu was powerful, he was injured by the celestial print. This print was simply too powerful, and its prestige was even greater. Ling Qianhu concluded that this celestial spell was definitely not something a mere celestial general could use. This celestial spell was definitely a high-quality celestial spell and was something only the celestial emperor could use. One finger was able to injure him. Then, adding the fact that Zhu Yi had attacked without any regard to his own life and the constant use of the Rain Celestial Sword's life sword energy, Ling Qianhu was forced into such an embarrassing state. However, there was no doubt about Ling Qianhu's power. After all, he was only in an embarrassing state temporarily. Then he lured Zhu Yi to the demon spirit land and sealed him there, completing his agreement with the ancient demon in the water demon country. This way it was 2 birds with 1 stone. However, Ling Qianhu didn't expect that hundreds of years later, Wang Lin would appear and change everything. Inside the crack, Wang Lin looked at Zhu Yi, who was sealed within the formation. Zhu Yi's body gave off a thick death aura. Back when Tinga disappeared, his heart had already died. This video will end here.